غرباء غرباء غرباء.
Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to a new episode of Contemporary Fiqh Issues. We have with us again our guest, Sheikh Al-Fadil, Sheikh Asim bin Luqman Al-Hakim. Sheikh Asim, welcome.
Jazakumullah khair, and thank you for having me.
Barakallahu feekum. Sheikh Asim is one of the well-known du'at who has traveled extensively around the world and lectured in both English and Arabic. He's the khatib and imam of a masjid in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and has been in such position for the last 21 years. Sheikh, today we're going to discuss a very serious issue that a lot of Muslims find difficult in dealing with, and we ask Allah to save us from it, and that's the issue of abortion. We'd like your expert opinion on the issue, but first we have a report that we filmed with a doctor, Dr. Ihab Samaha. So let's go to the report first, inshallah.
Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Ihab Samaha. I am a lecturer and consultant of obstetrics and gynecology. Today we are going to talk about abortion. Abortion can be defined as termination of pregnancy during the first or during the second trimester. And it can be done on a dead or a living fetus. The types of abortions are many. It includes a blighted ovum, which is an embryonic pregnancy. It can be spontaneous, it can be incomplete, it can be complete, it can be missed, it can be septic, or it can be recurrent abortion. The incidence of abortion before the age of 20 years is about 12%, and the incidence is about 26% above the age of 40 years. And the incidence of spontaneous abortion is about 80%, more than 80% of spontaneous abortions occur during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. The causes of abortions are many. It could be fetal, like chromosomal anomalies, whether it's aneuploidy or euploidy. Aneuploidy like trisomy, monosomy, which is 45X, triploidy, tetraploidy. It could be of maternal origin, like if she has a chronic debilitating disease like TB or cancer. It could be endocrinal causes like hypothyroidism or diabetes mellitus. It could be uterine, if we have uterine anomalies, whether septate or subseptate or bicornuate uterus or incompetent os. It could be from drugs like alcohol, caffeine, tobacco, could be from radiation or from contraception if she has an IUD inside the uterus. It can be from other diseases like thrombophilia or antiphospholipid syndrome or systemic lupus erythematosus. Actually, there are too many reasons for abortion, and the least is infection. Indications of abortions are if the baby is dead, we should give the mother a treatment in the form of drugs, or we could do a surgery in the form of evacuation and curettage if she's in the first trimester, or induction of abortion if she's in the second trimester. If the baby is living, the indications are variable depending on whether the problem is in the mother or in the fetus. If the problem in the mother, like if she's having a heart disease that cannot withstand pregnancy, we should terminate pregnancy. If the mother develops a disease during pregnancy like preeclampsia or eclampsia, we should terminate pregnancy. If there are problems in the fetus, like if the fetus is congenitally malformed, if there are anomalies in the fetus, we should terminate pregnancy. But anomalies that cannot survive later on, like neural tube defects, like multiple congenital anomalies in the limbs, in the heart, in the abdomen. In this case, we should terminate pregnancy.
Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Sheikh Asim, we just saw the report on the issue of abortion by Dr. Ihab Samaha. For many individuals in the West specifically, people equate abortion with a miscarriage. They say, well, a miscarriage is the same thing, so why can't we have an abortion? Could you please elaborate on the difference between these two issues?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. There is a difference between miscarriage and abortion. Miscarriage is something that is done without any human intervention. So there is no interference from the part of the woman who's carrying the fetus or from an external part, someone who beats her up or gives her medication or interferes surgically to have her abort the child. So a miscarriage is something that happens from Allah the Almighty, as we say. And we believe that it is in the best interest of the mother, because usually, as physicians say, that whenever a miscarriage takes place, this is because there is some form of mutilation or deformation in the fetus that would most likely be the cause of this child to be born into some form of being retarded, being something that is wrong in it. So Allah Azza wa Jal would choose for the pregnancy to be terminated as this early stage. And as a believer, we believe that whatever Allah Azza wa Jal rules upon a Muslim, then this ruling is for his or her best. And a miscarriage is, as said, is something that humans have no intervention to or with. Not like abortion. Abortion is something that is premeditated, and it is something that a person does, either a physician or by sort of abuse of the pregnancy. The mother can abort herself by carrying heavy things, for example, or by being beaten by or abused by someone else, and then she aborts her pregnancy. And this form of abortion is divided into two types. As we know that the first type is before the soul is breathed into the fetus. And the second type is after it was breathed into the fetus. Allah the Almighty tells us in the Quran, or the Prophet ﷺ tells us in the authentic hadith, the creation of any one of you is put together in his mother's womb for 40 days. So these are, of course, by a person who was illiterate and did not go into any medical schools, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet, and who could not read or write. Yet it is a revelation from Allah. He stated this 15 centuries ago. He said that the creation of any one of you is put together in his mother's womb for 40 days. Then he becomes a alaqa, which is a piece of thick coagulated blood, for a similar period, which is another 40 days.
Yes.
Then he becomes like a chewed piece of flesh for a similar period, and this is another 40 days. Then Allah sends an angel who is enjoined to write down 4 things, and it's said to him, write down his deeds, his provisions, his lifespan, and whether he is doomed for hell or destined to paradise. Then the soul is breathed into him. So from this hadith, we understand that the soul is breathed only after the 120th day.
So approximately 3 months, 4 months.
4 months. And this, before it, the soul was not breathed. So this gives us an indication that it's a different way of looking at a miscarriage or an abortion before having this. Also, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us that the chewed bit, a mudgha, it can be formed and not formed. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned this in the Quran. Allah the Almighty said, O mankind, if you are in doubt about the resurrection, then verily we have created you from dust, then from a nutfa, which is mixed drops of male and female sexual discharge, the offsprings of Adam that is, then from a clot, which is a piece of thick coagulated blood, then from a little lump of flesh, some formed and some unformed, that we may make clear to you.
Barakallahu feekum. We'd like to continue, inshallah, after the break and discuss the difference between the formed and the unformed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala.
Amazing stories.
The stories of the Quran, as well as the stories that were told to us by our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, are not fairy tales. They are not stories that were made up to convince us of something. They are true stories that actually happened. They said in the masjid, the Prophet ﷺ is talking. They said, Subhanallah, baqaratun takallam. They said, Subhanallah, a cow that speaks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this universe, my dear brothers and sisters, in such a beautiful way that everything is balanced, that every creature has a specific function, that they do not go outside of that frame. See, subhanallah, how the Prophet ﷺ is telling us about the story that happened before us. And this reminds us of the fact that Islam is a universal religion.
In this program, we will know about peoples from different times and places whose stories were mentioned in the Islamic tradition. All of this with Sheikh Lutfi will relate their stories and extract the lessons and wisdom behind them.
Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Sheikh Asim, just before the break, we were discussing the differences between what is mentioned in the Quran, the formed and the unformed. What is the difference between these two?
There is a big difference in the sense that of the rulings that are given, whether the fetus that was aborted or that came out as a form of the miscarriage, whether it's formed or not formed. So we have rulings regarding purity, regarding the funeral prayer, regarding washing the fetus and burying it, or discarding it, a number of things.
So is it fair to say that the difference between the formed and the unformed is the difference of that period that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that when there's no spirit and then when the spirit is finally in the fetus?
No, it's not, because as mentioned in the hadith, there are 40 days, 40 days, 40 days, and then the spirit is, or the soul is breathed into the fetus. Now scholars all agree that before the second phase, which is 80 days, this is not a living creature yet, because the soul was not breathed into it, first of all. Second of all, it's just a clot of blood. It's not still formed. And they all agree that from day 120 onwards, it's a living creature, because the soul has been breathed into it, so it's a living creature. The difference is between day 81 and day 120. These 40 days in between, where it is either formed or unformed. So if a miscarriage takes place in this period between day 80 and day 120, or an abortion takes place, we have to look at what came out. If it was formed in the sense that it has arms, it has legs, it has the shape of a head, then it takes the ruling of a born baby, in the sense that it has, for the mother that is, but as a child, no, it's not. It's not a living creature yet.
It doesn't have the spirit yet.
It doesn't have the soul or the spirit yet. But for the mother, if it was formed, then if she was divorced, we know that there is what is called as iddah. And if the divorce takes place while a mother is pregnant, she is out of the iddah, of the waiting period. She still remains the wife of her husband until she gives birth. The minute she gives birth, then she's considered to have her iddah over. So
her waiting period after marriage.
Yes.
After a marriage has been terminated.
So this is one. Second of all, the blood that comes out of a woman, which is the post-delivery bleeding, this is considered to be one of the things that prevents her from praying if the fetus was formed. But if it was not formed, then she has to pray and she has to fast, because this is not considered to be post-bleeding, post-delivery bleeding, and so on. There are a number of verdicts. If the fetus was formed, she does not pray, she does not fast. If it was unformed, she prays and she fasts, and so on.
Is she is the formed creature that goes out with a miscarriage, and we ask Allah to protect us, does it have a janazah that's prayed on it before, if the soul still didn't enter the baby?
It's not considered to be
living.
Okay. That's why we do not pray janazah for it. Some scholars say because it is formed, you can do this, and this is a little bit closer to reality because it's in between a living creature and a clot of blood. So because it has the formation of a living creature, some scholars say that you would offer a funeral prayer and it wouldn't harm this miscarried fetus to have this prayer. Inshallah, it would add value and reward to the parents.
But in all cases, once it's formed, do we bury it? Do we just toss it out?
Once it's formed, we have to bury it, and we give it a proper burial, because it is not something to throw out, as in the case of a clot of blood or a piece of meat.
SubhanAllah, one can't help but think, like, after discussing this issue and understanding once a baby is formed and so on, I mean, we see in the animal kingdom, even animals are very protective of their offspring. What could be worse than killing your own children in the eyes of common day murder? So what would drive somebody to want to abort their own child?
Well, this has a lot of answers to it, unfortunately. But before going into these answers or cases, we have to understand that Islam gives a lot of value to life. And that is why, like other religions, it's forbidden in Islam to abort a child, except in the very, very limited cases that we will come to mention, inshallah, if the time allows us to.
Inshallah.
But Islam gives a great value to life. Unfortunately, when you do not have proper belief and iman, you tend to feel that life is something that is worthless. Usually people who perform abortion are those who conceive through haram, those who conceive through illegal means, out of adultery or fornication. Maybe the doctors would come and say that the child or the fetus is not properly created, in the sense that it has a deformity or something that is missing. So the father and the mother would feel that we don't want to go into this. Let's abort the pregnancy altogether. Maybe, and in so many cases, especially when dealing with abortion in a commercial way, people would use the fetus in their stem cells researches. So they would sell this with a lot of money. So whenever a woman comes in, they would pretend that there's something wrong with her, and they would advise her, 3 or 4 doctors who don't fear Allah, who don't know Allah, and who are only interested in their wallets and bank accounts, and they would tell her to go and abort the pregnancy for her own safety and well-being. And they would take the fetus and would use its body parts, its use the stem cells, and etc. from it. So there are a lot of reasons, but among the reasons are abuse, because not necessarily the consent of the mother is always there in abortion. Maybe if someone attacks her or beats her while she is pregnant and she is having this miscarriage or abortion accordingly. So there are many reasons for that.
Are there any Islamically valid reasons we could think of where a woman would want to abort her child? For example, if she was raped or if she committed fornication?
Scholars say that a pregnancy that resulted from rape, though it is a great calamity, the one that was raped is rewarded at the sight of Allah because of this calamity. And the child she's conceiving, it has no guilt. He did not do anything wrong to be killed for. So they say that it is not permissible for her to perform this abortion, and unless it's 40 days young or old or below. But more than that, it would not be permissible. And some say it is not permissible altogether. In the case of being conceived out of wedlock, out of fornication or adultery, this is even greater. This is not permissible because it's their own wrongdoing, and it's not the child's fault that his parents or his mother, that is, did this sin.
Which brings us to our next point. So there is really a difference in terms of how the woman has to purify herself afterwards, how the child is considered a living creature or not, between the first 40 days, the next 40 days, and the final 40 days. Correct?
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, continue.
So then, is an abortion at different stages, whether it's the blood clot or the fetus that's been formed, or finally the child that obviously has its soul, which is obviously the worst time to abort, is the ruling the same? How are the people who abort their children in Islam treated? Are they punished? Are they...
Well, this is a good question. I don't think we have enough time to go into details, but 40 days and before 40 days and below, some scholars say that this is permissible, if there is a legitimate reason. If the soul was breathed then, there is no legitimacy whatsoever.
It's killing.
It's killing. Some even say that even if the mother was facing a heart attack and she could die while giving birth, you cannot abort the child because her death is probable. She might and she may not. But the killing of the fetus, it's a living creature, this is something that is found there. So is it wrong Islamically to abort a child? Yes, it is. Is it punishable? Yes, it is. It is punishable. And in Islam, if you kill a living fetus after the 120 days, you are forced to give expiation, blood money. You are forced to give blood money to the family of the child that was aborted, which is about 5 camels worth of money.
What if it's the woman who aborts her own child?
Then she's the one who's supposed to do this.
Okay.
And she gives it, and she has no share in it. She gives it to her husband, who is inheriting this child. And some schools of thought say that she has also, the person has to also fast 2 consecutive months as form of expiation.
But they're not charged with murder.
Well, it is not murder yet, because if the abortion takes place while the woman is pregnant with it, it's not fully fledged murder, but it is part of it, and it's a major sin in Islam. And we can go on to call it murder if the assault takes place at a pregnant woman and then she gives birth in a time which is usual for a woman to give birth, like 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and the child lives for a normal period of time, which is 10 minutes, half an hour, a normal life, and then dies out of this abuse or this assault.
So we can say this assault directly caused the death of this born child.
And he has to pay the full blood money.
No.
This is called murder. It's not like the 5 camels worth. No, he has to pay the full 100 camels as blood money to the parents.
Barakallahu feekum, ya Shaykh. It's always a pleasure to have you. We'd love to continue and benefit greatly, but unfortunately we have to go. Jazakallah khairan, and please, you're welcome to join us again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You can try to hold back the waves, but they will always wash upon your feet. Two waters flow with a barrier in between, the salty sea and rivers fresh and sweet. Everything Allah commands to be will always become a reality. Everything Allah commands to be will always become a reality. Allah Ta'ala, Allah